Is a long-time industry sector advocate for AI implementation and production, and he's got a lot of great experience, multi-decade experience in doing this in multiple sectors, and even in our own. He's got some ties with the industry and making sure that we can bring AI in as a valuable resource for our engineers, our operators, and our teams, making these decisions day by day, stabilizing operations, and then, of course, opening our envelope into new opportunities. So with that, Nitin, please jump on up here and let us know a little about your platform.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Nitin Ranjan. I'm the founder and CEO of Golgix. I've spent close to 20 years now in industrial data analytics and AI space. And I'll answer that question first and then get into the slides, right? Why is it called Golgix? Many people pronounce it Golgix, and I've come across, and the company was formed in 2020, and we were sitting on a dining table, and we said, you know what, I really believe that human body is the best machine built on the face of the earth, and so we said it has to have a biological reference, the company name. And Golgi apparatus in your cell synthesize protein to keep your cells alive. And what we do at Golgix is we synthesize data to keep to the machines and the process alive. And so that's how the company name was formed, and we are called Golgi apparatus in action, so Golgix. All right, so I will use my clicker here. Before I tell you what we do, how we do it, let's talk about what's at stake here first. BBC published that the industry is growing 20% in the next 4 years globally. That means great opportunity, the demand is rising, the carbon credits are waiting to be harnessed, but that poses a challenge where producers are asked to squeeze more out of feedstocks, do it with less energy, reduce waste, and that causes a lot of performance, operational challenges they have to address. To add to that problem, they generate 52 million data points on their production floor alone a day. That means they're getting buried under the data and repeatedly asked to use this data to make decisions. And that count of decisions is close to 7,000 per day. And that's what we are looking at across industries. When we walk the ethanol plants, we look at this, and they're data rich. Everybody has a lot of data, they have a lot of experiential learning, they know exactly how things work, but they're buried under all of this because that's where we are seeing variability, where yes, you can hit peaks. You have high peaks in distillation efficiency, whether it's fermentation efficiency, overall yield, there is a lot of highs, but those are not sustained highs. And what we see with that is that they're not able to repeat the best practices. They're not able to sustain a lot of those good behaviors, and which causes a lot of competitive risk in the ethanol production. So to solve that problem, we have a solution, and I think that's where a human-centric AI comes in. What does a human-centric AI mean? This is basically, we have built a technology which helps empower ethanol producers, leaders, to see this much more clearly, to understand the root causes of variability in their production. We're not trying to redefine what you can achieve, and we'll get to that in some of the case studies I've pulled together for you guys. But what we're trying to understand is what is the source of operational variability which is happening, because everybody has hit that golden fingerprint or golden batch or golden state where they are most optimal, but they keep falling off because of variability in feedstock, variability in the way enzymes operate, metabolites, variability when it comes to the usage of steam and gas and outside air conditions, the throughput with which you're running your plant. All of that causes variability, and there is a lot of people involved in this decision-making process. Making 7,000 decisions a day doesn't always achieve that operational efficiency you're looking for. So before we get into what we do, how we do it further, I would like to talk about the biggest question which I get asked most of the time: what is AI and what is it not? AI is, for us, is never a crystal ball. If you follow the AI trend or the bubble for the last, I think since 2020, 2021, when ChatGPT first started becoming a thing, 2022 is when everybody started to use it on their phone. Everybody was talking about AGI, general intelligence, that there will be a state where everybody is going to start to use a single AI tool to answer all questions. And that's how it was presented. That got a lot of tension, a lot of skepticism around like, what is this technology? How is it going to work? And we saw that, and when we formed this company, and since that point, we never believed that AI was a crystal ball. We were an AI company before ChatGPT was a thing, so ChatGPT helped us get AI to make people understand that the AI was equal to productivity, and it's not really a crystal ball where we don't have to make a single decision. We're just gonna let AI make decisions. So what AI truly is. For us, AI truly is a capability. And what is that capability? In our terms, that's decision intelligence. And what does a decision intelligence mean? Is like, how can we provide every context available within the data, within the process, within the years of decisions humans have made within a plant, within an operations floor? What is it that has worked within those decisions? How do you capture it and build that domain contextual intelligence, which can be harnessed at any given point, which can be harnessed in real time when certain variability comes in? That's what AI is for us. It's a capability which helps our producers, our users really make good decisions fast. It doesn't take 3 to 6 months to crunch a 52 million data point a day. It takes hours, days, minutes, weeks. That's how people can make faster, confident decisions and learn from that permanently. It's not about just throwing more data at them. It's about giving them quality insights so they can make good decisions. And that's what we are harnessing AI for at Golgix. So getting into, and I can continue talking for hours, so I know I have 20 minutes here, so I'm trying to speed up here. In a nutshell, we have a two-step process. And this has been talked about a lot in the data analytics space, but we do it far more effectively. Reason why? Because we use AI to do a lot of those data consolidation. If the data foundation is poor, you're not going to get any value out of AI. No decision intelligence, nothing of value is going to come out of it. So our literally 4-week process is where it all starts, and that is the most hardest thing to do. But the good news is the industry as a whole, especially for the ethanol producers, what we are seeing is that you have a historian, which has 3 years, 7 years worth of data, super noisy, but a lot of data. And then you have HPLC, the lab data. And then you have operations log and maintenance logbooks, and they go back decades, right? AI gave us a way to consolidate all of that, and within a week to 2 weeks, we can get all of that into a time series, well-bounded, well-correlated data set, and that's when the learning really starts. So we can get there very quickly. Once that is done, the next 3 steps of the process is very simple. We figure out what is the North Star. And when I say a North Star, it could be a golden batch for batch production, it could be best operating conditions for continuous fermentation process and ethanol production. But really understanding what peaks have you hit in your production. It's very easy to dig that out from your data, but then digging them out with making sure you have enough sentinel variables. And when I say sentinel variables, I'm talking about weather conditions. You cannot have a best efficiency point and winter and summer and the shoulder months to be the same. So understanding that, understanding how what your milling rate is working on, what's the throughput you're expecting, are you prioritizing byproducts more than the ethanol right now given the market state. Understanding all of those as to why people made those decisions historically, and then categorizing what does your golden batch or your best efficiency point looks at is what we find your North Star metric. So it's not a one figure, it's basically a benchmark across your entire production operation annually. Then understanding what really drives those decisions, what drives those variables, whether a chemical dosing has a responsible effect to it, what parameter of slurry temperature or pH or liquefaction to ethanol. Understanding all those fingerprints, what the best looks like, and where were these process variables when the best looks like, is what we learn from your data very quickly. And within 6 to 8 weeks, that all that learning and understanding is ready to be reinforced, meaning in 6 weeks it's live and you are using it, but then as you use it, you're gonna constantly make decisions based on the guidance, and then once that guidance gets validated, it gets reinforced. And that is how the system continues to learn and learns what good looks like every single time. And so if you look at the graph on the left-hand side here, our goal is to reduce the variability. So before we see the distribution of ethanol yield from most of the producers is really broad at the bottom. And what we have seen is as we are cutting down the bottoms, meaning the drops, if you reduce those drops and the fermentation efficiency or the distillation efficiency tighten up, the distribution automatically moves further to the left. And that is just the physics, the momentum. When you start making good decisions on a daily basis, batch to batch, your overall operation starts to increase and become more efficient irrespective. And that's what we are witnessing in our implementations. And then using all of that to predict at hour zero or firm hour zero, you want to call it, what will the future look like? Meaning in the next 72 hours when this batch comes out, where is going to be my ethanol concentration on the yield side, what my beer well is going to have, and how the next 24 hours to next 48 hours of production looks like. So we can predict all of that just because we're looking at all of this data holistically in a time series fashion. Then the step 2 of the process is, we talked a lot about fermentation, we talked a lot about how we are understanding what good looks like when it comes to temperature profile and things. But then what we're also seeing is when we cut down the variability up in the front part of it, like how you are packing the mash in the fermentation, or how you are dosing, what are the acid rate of generation in these fermenters. Once that curve gets to tighten up, we are seeing a lot more value downstream. Your distillation efficiency, your steam economy, your dryer operation has to compete a lot less, because if a consistent stream of ethanol is coming in your beer feed and you're maintaining that 900 or 914 or 830, whatever the beer feed rate you're maintaining it to the distillation column, if that has a consistent input composition, because your fermentation is running much more solid, we are seeing an automatic, we don't have to even optimize it. It automatically gets far more effective in the recovery process. And just making sure that we don't have beer bottoms issue and fouling issue in the evaporators downstream is the only thing we worry about, because if we control the upstream, automatically the downstream gets better. And when the downstream gets better, that's where a lot of the plant-based CI's intensity is there, and the energy intensity in that process, whether it's steam, the generation of steam, is where we are seeing a lot more reduction in variability, and it's almost like a byproduct of running your plant better upstream. All right, so let's get into a couple of implementations here, just to put this all in perspective, how this works. So for example, we talk a lot about variability, and one of the causes of variability is contamination. Not a complete bad batch, but higher levels of glycerol or lactic acid or acetic acid. Everybody knows it, that they have some level of contamination in there. Everybody running this plant for 20, 30 years still compete with contamination, because that could be caused through many ways, whether it's your dosing is incorrect, or you send the prop at the wrong time, or it was a little bit late, or the CIP was not effective, or that there was some dead legs in the sprayer. There could be many reasons why a contamination can happen. And if you just look at this problem, we know that this is a problem across industry, but for this producer, they have 6 fermenters and one of them constantly underperformed. And it was not, we didn't even get to contamination first, it was constantly underperforming, and it's built the same, it's the new fermenter. And to look at this problem, it could have taken us 3 to 6 months to source all the data and understand where this underperformance for this fermenter comes from. We got to contamination very quickly is because we have HPLC, so we know the metabolites rate. We know exactly how the metabolites are increasing from firm hour 0 to all the way to 60. But we also knew what temperature they're maintaining. We also know where geographically in the plant this fermenter was. Is it getting hit by the sun directly, because you know the temperature really has an effect on it? How was the fermentation on the yearly basis in a summer month and a winter month? Looking all of that and more around slurry consistency and how are they running the actual fermenter? Is there a control issue? All of that data is readily available in your DCS in their plants. But crunching that data within a week and coming up with levers they can pull to control this is what AI does for you. And that is what we saw. So the problem was recurrent contamination issue, which was kind of elevated because of the underperformance. 6 fermenters all alike, but one keep falling. They all get filled the same exact input, but they were having variability. And so data, amount of information was the roadblock, and the solution was basically, we don't run plants. We provide insights of what could be the reasons why something is there. So this is always an empowering and a collaborative effort. When we come up with like, look, you have been running this fermenter, and we saw, like, for example, at 34, firm about 34, what we saw was the yeast will start tailing. So there was a lot of hyperactivity up front, but then it will start tailing. In there, we'll see temperature spike. When that happens, we'll see a little bit of metabolite rate increase in that 30 to 25 hour mark. And all of that was given as an actionable recommendation with AI and with our domain context to the producer. And the producer decided to say, okay, you know what, the lever which we want to pull is let's change our CIP routine just on the fermenter 6 first, because this might need a 10-degree more cleaning, higher temperature cleaning than others have been because of where it's located and what type of yeast activity we are seeing. We did that. We changed their volume of dosing as well, and they were able to reduce, and I'll get to this in a second, they were able to reduce that contamination by almost 9.2%. What that meant, that their ethanol yield went up by 0.5%, their fermentation efficiency went up by 0.22% before and after the implementation of a high CIP and a 5 gallons of protease. So you can see across the board, the lactic acid went down by almost 12%, acetic acid by 4%, total contamination down by 9%. So that was the result we saw. And this is consistently we are seeing everywhere. And also one thing which is not on the slide, and you can see this very clearly in the data, look at the variability in the ethanol yield further on the left-hand side. It's shrinking. And that is where we see a lot of value and benefit. Might not be a point solution of just like, okay, we could reduce the contamination, but it's also very visible that the process is working much more tighter and much more effective in terms of what the loads are and what the highs are. So we talked about, and I skipped a slide, I'm gonna go back to it for a second. We talked a lot about looking at it from all those angles of yeast tailing or metabolites or CIP. And maybe I gotta go back here. Right. So this is a product video, and this talks about a weekly pulse. What is a weekly pulse? Weekly pulse is our way of looking at the process, looking at the pain point from all those angles, and giving that insights to the producer so they can take actions. Now, to do that, when we analyze all the data points, it cannot just be a graph or a study or a gigantic PDF which we send out and we expect people to make active decisions from that. And because we are crunching all of this in a week, it has to be presented in a way, in an actionable way, so that they can make that decisions much more effectively. So as I said, a human-centric AI helps us provide that type of reporting to them on a weekly basis and sometimes even daily basis. And when we meet with them on a weekly basis, we come up with those angles of like, okay, we're gonna target how much nitrogen we are putting in a fermenter, or we're gonna target what temperature are we running, the thermal profile we are running on the fermenter when the outside air temperature of X. Is there a problem with my cooling water supply? All of that angles get discussed on a weekly basis, and that is why we are seeing that we can move the needle in less than 3 months in most of our implementation of our solution. And that's one form of agentic reporting. The other way we do it, which I'll cover in our second case study here, is our, the variability in general. So for this producer, what we was looking for is their fermentation efficiency. They had 4 fermenters. Their fermentation efficiency curve was very, very, very big. They could go from anywhere from 80% to all the way to 92%. And that was a lot all due to of their feedstock. They had dry frac as well as corn. They blend it, they put it in there, and depending upon what type of feedstock they were getting, input concentration, their dosing will have to be regulated, which was causing a lot of variability as well. Their temperature profile, their distillation efficiency, all of that was feeding into that variability, even to the level of where we saw that if the beer well level was above a certain percentage, a certain part of the beer well got exposed, and it was driving some contamination as well, because that part did not get cleaned up as well. So there was a lot of variability in their fermentation efficiency because of just siloed operations. Fermentation ran its own, distillation other way, beer well other way, and there was no interaction between that. And the roadmap was always that we went to those all hands meeting at the plant, and they were always talking backwards. They're always looking at the issues from like 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and the problem has completely changed. So there, our goal was to let's start from the front end of the process and then go to all the way to the bottom of it. And what we saw was the way they were packing their fermenter, especially their slurry, was very inconsistent because they had special water coming from the food part of their production, and that water will have a different varied level of pH, which will cause the pH to spike of the slurry. They will have a varied level of slurry condition. Their density meter will get stuck, and they will not be able to know how much solids they're putting into the fermentation. So there was a lot of inconsistency how they were packing up their solids. And that is exactly what we fixed using our early warning. What is our early warning? Early warning is basically our way of taking all of this data, putting the machine learning algorithms on top of it to find spots where it's a high indication that your solids to density correlation is broken, and you're going to start seeing variability in your fermentation if you don't fix that. But then if you just say that, if you just send those graphs to people, they're going to, okay, fine, we have this data. But with the use of AI and the contextual knowledge we talked about, what we can actually help do is create something like this where it explains itself. Recently I was in a meeting, and one of the executives told me that I don't like LLM, I don't like AI because it just gives me answer. It never tells me what the problem is. And if I want to train my people with that type of angle, like just give me answers, they're never gonna learn something. And we completely agree with that. And that is why if you look at this early warning, we just don't talk about go do this, what the recommendation action is, which again, by the way, is derived from industry experts who has worked in the plant for 20 years. They know if they were at that point when this early warning, what they would have done. We learn that on our weekly calls, so we can make that contextual learning much more effective for the green operators. But then we also talk about what's happening. We also talk about why it's happening, what probable root cause, so that the user is not just getting fed a solution, but they also get the context of the problem. What is the problem and why somebody's asked to do X, Y, and Z. And that's like a on-spot learning, which is very effective. We have seen people understand their process much faster, given all the labor challenges we see in manufacturing as a whole, not just ethanol production, where we have less people than before, and we're trying to get them up to speed and get them to learn making good, effective decisions as quickly as possible. Our way of providing that through early warning has been really effective, and it shows in the impact. It shows that for this producer, we were able to improve almost 1% on their gallons per bushel through this implementation, where we were able to increase close to 3,000 gallons per day of extra production just by cutting down that variability completely. So with that, I think almost on time here. With that, what we're seeing is across all our implementation, including this, we have had sustained impact on reducing variability. And the takeaway here is not that we're going to use AI to like find out the next best efficiency point. That will automatically come if you cut out the bottoms, because that's the momentum shift which is happening. So the way we implement our solution is we look for what your today's best. Let's try to hit that sustainably well, reduce your variability, and we're seeing close to 17% reduction in variability in production performance now. And then that automatically drives the graph to move more towards the left and have more effective production. And to make it real, as we know, the repeatability is gold, and just repeating that function again and again, we have been very effective in implementing the solution. All right, thank you.
Repeatability is gold, and you got it in gold font, just to lay it on thick. But really appreciate you guys coming out. We're gonna head to a break now, so we're gonna break until 9:50 this morning, just to make sure everybody